Welcome back to part 3. So now we have our Dataverse for Teams environment. We've imported our Center of Excellence core components for Teams. That's the critical bit because there are 2 variations. And now we're going to do some of the preliminary actions before things really start to work for us. So one of those first actions is to enable some of the child flows that will have been imported as part of the solution. And it is critical to do it in a certain order as per the Microsoft documentation, because as you can imagine, with them being child flows, there will be parent flows, if you will, that will be executing them, but it won't be happy if you try and turn on such a flow that has a child flow that's not already turned on. So let's take a look. So what we're going to do now in the nice modern view, we can easily just go to our flows by clicking on Cloud Flows in the left. And you can see there's quite a few, there's 55. So I'm going to click on here, and they are named well. So we're looking for all of the ones that are prefixed with helper or cleanup helper. So the first one I'm going to locate is going to be the helper send email. And we can see that that one is actually already turned on, so saves me a job there. The next one we're going to check is helper make a check. So I'm just going to select it and I'm going to do turn on. We then have helper Cloudflow operations. And this is where we're probably going to have to do some troubleshooting. So this forbidden error is actually one of the known errors. And what we should just have to do, so it was on the make a check, is we're going to go to this flow and we're going to look at the run only user properties. So I imagine, I am down as the owner, but I'm just going to edit run only users. And I'm just going to click OK to that one because that actually seemed to be the only one that wasn't populated. I may have to use these connections, but let's do troubleshooting best practice and let's just do it a step at a time. I am also conscious I might not have the sufficient licensing, but let's see how we get on. So let's try and turn this on again. This time I'll actually read the error a bit more. So admin data policy CoE restricts connector. So admin graph URL environment variable. Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to imagine that is going to be our HTTP with Azure AD one, because if you remember in a previous video, we did configure the endpoint to only be specifically the graph URL, which I'm a bit surprised by because I thought I did specify graph, but maybe not correctly. So let's just try and save up this flow actually and see if it will highlight the area where it's going wrong. So look up in AD for service principals, new app. So let's just find that. So here we go. And this will be why, because it's taken our graph URL, and I think that specifically is as far as we went, whereas we did include v1.0 / service principles / maker ID. So really, we would probably want to do that. So what I'm going to try and get away with for now is I'm going to go to my favorite URL, which is aka.ms/ppack. But as with all these things, the error messages are normally quite useful. And worst case scenario, we can always, for the sake of showing this, just remove that specific URL, but I'd rather not. So we're going to edit our policy. We're going to come to the policy in question. We're going to come to the connector in question. With it selected, configure connector, connector endpoints. And I think it's because of this. So what I'm actually going to do for now is I will leave it as the V1 because that'll prevent the beta being used. Service principles, so you're narrowing down again, and I'm going to hope that it's going to accept a wildcard there. So we'll just click this through to confirm it. We'll now come back over. We'll come out of here. Ensure we've got Cloudflow selected on the left. Search for helper. And now we'll try and turn on the helper maker check flow again. So it's still not happy about this, so let's double check it again. So we know that the data policy is the CoE one. Shared web content to access endpoint, graph URL environment variable, v1.0 / service principles. One thing I am going to check is if we click on environment variables on the left, I just want to double check what we actually have populated for here. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that's looking like that's just blank, but it sometimes does show that. So in the end, because by definition of being a managed solution, we can't edit it, and short of re-importing the solution, specifying it again, or creating an unmanaged cut of the solution, all that stuff, there is this handy command center app, which wasn't actually available the first time I set up Center of Excellence. But anyway, long story short, click on apps on the left-hand side, come to admin command center, play the Canvas app, and within setup on the left, this is how you can see and change current values as opposed to default values, which would be used in place of current values not being available. So it is graph.microsoft.com, which would fill in that portion of the URL. So if we just come back to the policy again, I've now, so HTTP with Azure AD, and then configure connector endpoint. So we've got graph.microsoft.com, which lines up with this. And then we've just thrown the V1 service principles and then tried to do it as a wildcard. But That's if that's been treated as a wildcard and not explicitly. The other variable at play was the maker ID, but that's the group ID. So coming back to the flow, I'm just go to helper. So in the end, what I am actually going to do is I'm just going to switch up the wildcard entry to allow, because you will note here it does say enter the full URL, so it's got to be exact, or wildcard. You can't specify 50-50. So let's confirm this. And now we'll go back. Cloud flows, filter to helper, and we'll attempt to turn it on again. I think we're getting going through all the errors you could possibly get today, which is good in a way. So this is basically, in a nutshell, saying that my account doesn't have an adequate license. So what I'm going to try and do to combat this is I'm going to attempt to quickly sign up for a trial. A handy way of getting a trial is just to create a flow, select a premium connector, and then if available, upon selecting a premium connector, it will prompt you. So I'm going to click Start Trial. And we should be able to confirm this by looking at plans, he says. But let's close this down. Let's give this a refresh. Click the gear icon. Click on plans. Still not showing, but let's go to helper. Now select the maker check and then turn on. And this time it succeeded. So now, working through the rest, we're now going to do helper Cloudflow operations. Select turn on. The next one is Canvas app operations. Turn on. And to be honest, as long as they're all in the same state, I'll be able to do object operations. And then we've got the cleanup helper one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to attempt to turn all of these on, but I quickly realize I'm not because I don't get the turn on option. So let's do the object operations. Okay, we've got a new error message here. So let's go into this flow. As sometimes it's a bit more obvious as to the issue if you go within here. We'll try and turn it on within here. So it cannot be used as a child workflow because it has never been published. Child workflows need to be published at least once before they can be included in a published parent workflow. So I'm going to attempt to edit and save this up.